Hi, I am Patric Palm, CEO and co-founder at Favro. We're going to talk about enterprise agile planning and why Favro is the most agile enterprise planning tool ever made. With me today, I have my colleague Jon Leslie, and we have been working together for quite a while actually. But today, he's a partner of Favro. So. He's a certified Favro Agile partner, which means that he's helping customers that are doing an agile transformation and want a bit of help with that. And Favro as a company, we focus on making the tools. He's also a certified SAFe consultant, so quite often, these enterprises that are talking with Jon and us, they. Favro is part of a conversation that have to do with SAFe. And I'll get back a little bit to this later. But Jon has an amazing background, having worked with both ERP systems, game development. Worked with him when I built my previous company. Now with Favro, we've been working together, and this has been a successful partnership and a way for us to collaborate. So we're going to collaborate, during this session when we're going to show you. What makes Favro so unique. Now, the first thing to really talk about here is how the market is changing for enterprise agile tools, and I put together this slide. Personally, I like the bottom part here. Just looking at the literature, have that changed, and how that is really moving towards more of a agile management. But the key points here, are really the ones you see in green in how the market is changing. The fact is that the most adaptable organizations survive and thrive as market complexities increase. It's not the biggest ones or the ones with most financial muscles anymore. It is truly the one who is most adaptable, which is basically the original definition of survival of the fittest. So agile is not really about just teams being agile or software development being agile. It's really about business agility, the whole organization, the whole enterprise being agile. And the most agile ones, they are the ones that's going to win. The other thing here is that COVID has brought change. It has accelerated digitalization of work, of the workplace. And what we're seeing here is that post-COVID, there's going to be a new normal where hybrid with online remote work is going to be the norm. We start to see many companies announcing already now that they're not going to go back to the previous normal. It's going to be a new normal with more of a hybrid approach. And this means that what happens online, that is the office. That's the main thing. And what kind of tools you're using is going to be more important than how fancy your office is. Another important driver in the change in the market is that Generation Y, Z are increasingly taking over the workforce. It's just a demographic fact, and they have different values on how things should work. They want more autonomy. They want flatter organizations. They want leaders that are more evolved, more servant leaders, not the kind of traditional command and control kind of leaders. And what we're also seeing is a consumerization of business apps. Today's workforce, they don't want enterprise tools that are old-fashioned, clunky, centralized. They want something that feels as easy to use as Facebook or Instagram. And finally, enterprise-grade security and data governance is becoming important for cloud tools. So it's not only enough to be a cloud based tool anymore. You need to live up to demands in terms of data governance and security. And of course, when it comes to data governance, that's a lot, driven a lot by everything that happens, not only with GDPR in Europe, but also with similar things around the world. So these are the drivers that we think are interesting and are changing the market, and that Favro is designed to meet. A little bit more specifically, the core of Favro is to enable team autonomy and alignment towards company goals. The image that I put on here is probably quite familiar to anyone who's been in the Agile community for a while. traditionally you might see alignment and autonomy as kind of opposites on a two-dimensional scale, but it's really a matrix, like this, where in practice, many of the organizations that have been successful in the past have been living really up here in the top left. Command and control organizations, centralized tools, centralized processes. And what we're really moving towards is to the right here, the top right quadrant. You always want to be in the top right quadrant, where you have the team autonomy and alignment towards company goals. And what this means in terms of leadership, how you should act as a CEO, how you should organize your company, and if you use say the Spotify model, or be like Amazon, or things like this. This is kind of already figured out. But tools are often forgotten in this, and if you have a tool which is really more designed for over here, that might actually be an impediment for your success to be someone over here in the top right quadrant, rather than something that helps you. So if we look at the marketplace today, the way that we see it is that you have the big players that are doing work by acquisition to try to move more into the Agile space. A good example is Atlassian acquiring Agile Craft and rebranding it Jira Align. You're also seeing companies like, for example, Monday, adding more and more features. We obviously think they're bloating it, but the point is that they want to move upwards here towards the space. The thing with Favro is that Favro was from the beginning designed for the team autonomy and the company alignment. So from the beginning, we were aiming for this, and I would argue that we are still the tool that is absolutely most powerful in actually helping with that. So when it comes then to really what our message is about, this is really the core of it, that Favro is the most agile all-in-one platform ever made for enterprise agile planning. And what we mean here is not that it's a platform for agile. We mean that it's a platform which is very agile, and I'm going to come back to what that really means. And already today, Favro, it scales to businesses of any size or industry vertical, and the people that use Favro are not just product developers. It's really across the whole board. Our biggest customers, they have thousands of users, and it's marketing teams, HR, leaders, executives, and of course also product development. And if we go a little bit more precise here, what we mean by being the most agile tool, well, one thing is very simple. There's a lot of change. Team members change, goals change, priorities change, processes change, and Favro is simply the fastest tool to update. If you use something like, let's say, Jira, in a big organization, typically, you have to send a request to some central IT team, to do some updates. And maybe they will do it, maybe not. It will take time. It's not a very agile way to work. So if we're actually talking about team autonomy and company alignment, you can't then have a tool which is really building on very old principles of high centralization. So Favro is in many ways more similar to, let's say, Slack, in the way that it really enables that kind of autonomy, but still living up to kind of enterprise grade requirements. And as I was saying here, it's very much about being for any kind of team and any leader. So many tools are very kind of deep on the product side, and Favro is very popular with very techy organizations, but it's really about a much broader approach here with as I said, marketing, operations, HR, legal, executives, everyone using it. And one of the reasons we think it's very important that the tool is very agile itself is because most teams are unique. There's a lot of similarities. Let's say a marketing team at one company is quite similar to a marketing team at another company. So there are similarities, and Favro got templates and all those kind of things. We get templates for for innovation pipelines, for for SAFe, for Spotify model, for Scrum, for Kanban, et cetera. We're going to look at that, in detail here in a second. But in practice, every team is unique, and for us, it's important that the tool doesn't dictate process. If the tool dictates process, it's never going to be a good fit. And even more importantly, it's not going to change as you change, because a good organization, and this is key, an organization which is truly agile changes all the time. So Favro changes with you in that way, in a way, so the tool doesn't become an impediment. This is important. So these are, some of the key things with Favro. And if you look at our customer base, we already have a lot of, venture-backed startups, unicorn companies, and many enterprises doing agile transformations, then adopting Favro. Smallest customers are, small teams with just a few users, up to, somewhat bigger teams and companies with maybe 50 users, 100 users, up to our biggest clients that have thousands of users across, their whole organization. And the way that we go to market is a little bit different from many other companies. We have, up until now, been relying upon campaigns, ads in social media. And we do this on a global basis. We are covering almost the whole world. We have some exceptions like Russia and China, which is for specific reasons. But the rest of the world, we are approaching and covering today. And today, our customer base, when it comes to revenue, North America is 30%, Europe is 50%, South America 4%, and Asia Pacific is 60%. And the map that you see here now, this is actually a screenshot I took today from our internal tool, showing live exactly how this all works. We have a very machine-based approach to customer acquisition and how we work with the market. So we don't really have any sales guys who's going to call you up and chase you down. People find us through these ads. The way that our customer journey typically works is basically like this: that most customers, they find us through one of these ads, as I mentioned, independent on if they're in the US or in somewhere in Asia Pacific. They do a 14-day free trial, and they put in their credit card, and that's how they get started. And then it typically grows organically from team to team. Managers start using Favro to organize really kind of team of teams and get a good overview, etc. And normally when we reach about, let's say, 50 users or so, we get an email from procurement at this company saying, hey, it's awesome that all these teams love using Favro, but you need to live up to our security compliance, and typically also there's a need for some data governance compliance. And we have a team called strategic accounts that have experience to take care of these things. The tool can live up to these things, so we can go through these security assessments, and we can do everything needed to live up to these demands. And then we typically make more of an enterprise deal, with IT procurement. And then here in the fourth stage, it's really kind of jumps from a kind of department to department, or I should really say business unit to business unit within this enterprise. And when companies have used Favro for more than a year, they often open to make more of a multi-year deal. So we make an enterprise mega deal, with these clients. So this is typically how it works. When if you think around what is truly important for us, I can share an anecdotal metric, which is unfortunately quite saddening. And have a not Jon, a friend, one of the most successful SAFe consultants, and he was saying that really only 10% of all SAFe implementations are successful. It doesn't mean that 90% are massive failures. It just means that they're partial success. But the key thing is that one of the things we truly believe in is that a very, let's say, framework based approach might might not be the thing that works the best. Favro supports SAFe in an amazing way. We're going to look at that in a second. But we are big believers in the, say, more organic approaches, because what we see is that the best companies out there, they're changing a lot all the time. And it means that then you need to have an approach in how you look at scaled agile, which is designed for that. So, we are bigger believers in, for example, the Spotify model. Looking at what McKinsey is doing right now, they kind of, took the Spotify model and made it their own. These kind of approaches, we see, work much better. So when we designed Favro, we really optimize it for that rather than a specific framework. However, in practice, what people do is that they take a little bit of this framework and a little bit of that framework, and it's going to be a custom thing, and Favro fits really, really well done there. So this is one of the things which is one of the most important elements of our vision to really support this kind of more, let's say, organic way of achieving business agility. And one of the things I think we can improve a lot is that when we look at that customer journey I was showing you, we can do a better job at really telling the story or showing people that are, let's say, more in the mid-management position that this is something very good for the organization. It's not so hard, when I speak to a CEO or someone on executive level, they typically get this quite easily. And people on a team level, let's say a team lead or team manager, they typically love Favro the minute they pick it up. But convincing the mid-management that it is moving in a more, let's say, organic fashion rather than a traditional, that would be the worst, or a very, let's say, strict framework fashion, might not be the best way. I think we have a lot of work to do there in the year or years to come here. So with that said, Jon, why don't we show a couple of examples here? We got plenty of things to go through. Let's start with how to do road mapping. So let's say we start from the top a little bit here in the organization.
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so as Patrick said, starting with road mapping. First of all, just to get you a little bit oriented with the app itself. So over here on this left-hand side, this is the main navigation pane for the app. And this is a list of what you can see here are all collections. So the main concept in Favro, and again, something that's very unique to Favro, is that you can have multiple boards, as you can see here, and also possibly backlogs in a single screen Favro collection. So a collection is just that. It's an aggregation of all the boards, potentially all the backlogs that a team or a department or some sort of aggregate program needs to get their work done. So it's specific to that team, that level of the organization, that department, to do what it is they specifically need to do. So as you can see here for this product development team, their collection at the very top, we have a product roadmap. So here they can build this any way they like. They can drag and drop like this. They can change the dates simply by dragging and dropping like this, organize things differently. Maybe this is going to come in a little bit later, like this. So the whole idea is to make this as easy as possible to even maybe the team members to do product road mapping. So another thing that's important to point out is that each board has multiple different views. So you can switch from a timeline view to a sheets view like this, to a Kanban view like this, all again on a single board. You can also switch to charts. We have burn down charts, cumulative flow charts, control charts, all different ways of visualizing the same cards, the same data, the same user stories in this case, on a single board. So moving on to what else this product development team would need. So this team happens to be a Scrum team, so Favro has full built-in support for Scrum. And speaking of backlog management, this is what a Favro backlog can look like. Very simple example here, but it gets across the point mainly that also unique to Favro, you have the ability to create a hierarchical backlog. So you can have as many levels of hierarchy as you like, simply by indenting and outdenting like this, which can represent themes, epics, broken down into user stories, so on and so forth. So the idea being, if you had a team working in Scrum, that they would take, when they're doing the sprint planning, so to say, they'd take maybe the next highest priority user story from their product backlog and drag and drop that into their sprint backlog like this. Also important to point out that from a prioritization standpoint, you have the ability to create multiple selects, drop-down statuses like this. When you're doing sizing, when you're doing estimating, all of this very nicely rolls up to maybe the epic in this case, with a full summation down at the bottom. So as this team begins their actual sprint, work would progress. Maybe from the sprint backlog, they'll pull that into in progress like this. And since the cards can uniquely in Favro exist in multiple places, this Slack integration, for example, exists here in the backlog, but also exists here on the team's sprint board. So as this moves, say from not started to in progress, you're able to track that. Maybe this product backlog was supporting teams of teams. You're able to track all of the user stories, all of the features, all of the epics, and where they are currently in progress directly from the backlog because of the ability to have those Favro cards in multiple places at the same time. So this will probably get pulled into maybe review like this, and eventually to done and feature ready like so. So you can see as I was doing that, there were some things going on there that some of the simple automations like auto tagging, auto assignments on the cards themselves as they're moving through each team's specific flow. So on to support for Kanban. Favro has full Kanban support. If I switch to maybe this external marketing team, we can see their Kanban board. Also important to point out that Favro has full support for externals, outsourcing, pulling those people closer into the internal organization, especially now that teams are remote. This is, of course, very important. So here you can see an external marketing agency's Kanban board broken down. They can set this up in whatever stages they like. Bad column here. There's also workflow rules built in to be able to very specifically define the flow based on how each team wants to set up their Kanban board. And you can also show flow-based metrics directly on board. So say this team wants to see time on board and time in column synonymous with lead time and cycle time. You can see that data directly on the card, and that's all tracked in real time. Charts that specifically support a Kanban team. Cumulative flow charts and also control charts. So moving up to teams of teams, as Patrick mentioned, Favro has full SAFe support. And I'm going to move to an example of an organization that's implementing SAFe. So we'll start at the portfolio level. Favro can support all the different iterations of SAFe, full SAFe, essential SAFe, you name it. Here we're looking essentially at a full SAFe implementation with the portfolio level, including value streams, the solution level, the art or program level, and the team levels itself, down here and here. So here at the portfolio level, you can see there's everything from the ability to support strategic themes, a portfolio backlog, broken down into business opportunities, enablers, marketplace changes, so on and so forth. Your business epics. Also the ability to have a portfolio canvas and having all of those, that portfolio backlog feeding a portfolio Kanban. So very similar to what we saw with the product development team, this is just at the portfolio level of the organization, being able to take a business initiative and pull that into maybe the funnel, pulling it through to review, to analysis, to backlog, all the way through to implementation and eventually live.
Jon, in your value proposition up there, if you can expand that, I think you had some nice examples of lanes being used in Favro.
Yeah, here's a good example of, as Patrick says, is being able to break down a board into lanes. So here I've broken this particular one down into the different value streams. And you could simply do the same thing that I showed you on the portfolio board, being able to take any one of these cards from a backlog, for example, and pull them into the various lanes, like so. So since we're at the portfolio level, we're also looking, and this is again something, I can't stress this enough, how unique this is to Favro, this ability to have boards and backlogs from other teams' collections, from other levels of the organization in a single screen collection. So here we're not only looking at the portfolio level, but we can also bring in backlogs and boards from the other SAFe levels. So here we have a solution trend backlog and its particular breakdown, maybe business epics broken down from the portfolio backlog into capabilities, so to say, like this. And then eventually those solution trained business epics and capabilities will be brought over to the designated Agile release train, where those can then be broken down into features. And eventually those features will be assigned to a particular team. And those features will be broken down into the user stories that are then committed to the team's Scrum boards or Kanban boards. So while we're here, here's an example of a value stream collection. Full support for value streams, again, that portfolio backlog, maybe a specific value stream backlog. And then over here on the right, we have the value stream canvas, big part of SAFe, broken down by how that value stream flows. This is a development value stream. The development value stream details. So this is just showing how you can build a full canvas. The boards can be used any way you like. So you can have your value proposition column, the solutions that support this particular value stream, and the products that support this particular value stream, your customer segmentation, the channels, the budgets, Opex and Capex, so on and so forth. Speaking of budgets, You could fully implement lean budgets, both Capex and Opex in Favro, as you see here. So full support for the safe budget, lean budget guardrails. Here's an example of guardrail 1, investment horizon. So again, using the power of the boards, breaking it down into those safe lean budget investment horizons, Horizon 3 to Horizon 2 to Horizon 1 to Horizon 0. For each solution, the budget for each one of, or the investment budget for each one of those horizons through the entire value stream product lifecycle. For lean budget guardrail 2, capacity allocation. So moving from PI increment to increment, these are the capacity breakdowns for features, enablers, and technical debt for each one of the PIs, moving on to the future, how far you want to look out for each one of the solutions. And looking at guardrail 3, initiative approval. This is a very simple Kanban saying we've identified a significant initiative, whatever that initiative might be. Does it exceed the budget level threshold for the portfolio? Yes or no. If it's above, pull it into here. If it's below, pull it into here. If it's above, then it has to feed back into the portfolio Kanban. And again, since the cards can exist in multiple places, you can simply drag and drop this card back onto that portfolio Kanban that we saw earlier. If it's below, then it would go to the specific art teams or program level Kanban for their usual flow. Okay, so while we're here in this safe organization example, obviously portfolio planning, you can do that here at the portfolio level. We have the full portfolio backlog where you can do things like prioritization, whether it's drag or drop, your estimation, weighted shortest job first, if you're using that for your prioritization, and the estimation, maybe swag, strategic wild ask guess. In this particular example, estimations at the portfolio level. And again, those portfolio level business epics could be feeding either the portfolio Kanban or maybe a portfolio roadmap at this particular level. For the program level, so say for this Agile Release Train 1, we take a look at their art backlog, as you can see here, their program backlog. And we can do the same thing. So full support for prioritization and also estimation. We can even tag to specific releases or PIs. Another way to do that is to simply take one of these and drag it into the PI that it's planned for, like this. And then you're able to see here, back in that program backlog, exactly when to expect each one of, what PI each one of these particular capabilities is currently planned for. Again, another kind of feature power of being able to have a good example of being able to have the cards in multiple places at the same time. Okay, also as Patrick mentioned, not only does Favro fully support SAFE, but it also fully supports any hybrid of the Spotify model. Bringing it to this other sample organization where they're using some sort of instance, they're making the Spotify model their own essentially. And you can see here that the collections now on the left are broken down into the individual squads. So you have squad 1 here, for example, squad 2, and then those squads are all feeding into the tribes. So again, since it's so easy to have multiple boards and backlogs from the different teams that make up this tribe, we can take Maybe the music player tribe backlog, but for the overall master backlog for this tribe. And then we'd have that broken down into the individual squads, feature squads that make up this overall tribe. Their backlogs, again, in the same collection. So you can take something like this music player epic, as I've already done here, pull it from this backlog into the squad level backlog, and then break that down. Again, that epic exists in multiple places, both here and here, and then break that down into its various user stories. And you can see for things like estimation, even though maybe at the epic level, when it was first being estimated at the tribe level, it was 36 points. But when it's estimated now, more importantly, at the team level, you can see that that automatically rolls up at both the squad level and the tribe level. So here you can see an example of a Spotify model release train broken down into the various weeks, using lanes here to represent the various squads. And also not only having the backlogs for each one of those squads in this tribe level collection, but also having the boards themselves. So if we need to see something more specifically, we don't have to jump back and forth between all the various team level collections to find what we're looking for. These are all live boards, live backlogs directly here in this tribe level collection. So we need to see in real time what the music player feature squad 1 is working on, where they're at with all the various user stories and features they're working on. Just simply open up their board, even commenting in real time like this. So you can see here just quick examples of a chapter, a guild. So all the things that essentially make up the Spotify model fully supported here in Favro. Okay, so speaking of collaboration, back at our product development team 1 collection, back in the Cool Company organization, here's an example of if you open up one of these Favro cards, the card itself is a full real-time team collaboration workspace. So everything from updating custom fields, creating custom fields on the fly, communicating, as you can see Patrick here, communicating on the card in real time. So having the conversation where the work is actually happening. Is super important. So Slack is great, but all the conversations that happen in an app like Slack don't have the context of where the work is actually happening, like you have here in this example here in Favro. So Patrick can be adding some content here. As you can see, Patrick added this content on the fly. I can maybe do some formatting on it. I can comment on it. Very specific parts of the content. So just a really good, simple example of collaborating in real time on the cards themselves. Now you can do the same thing on the board. So when I jump out of this card, you're going to be able to see if Patrick highlights this Slack integration card that he's currently working on this card. Now, if he were to move that, like he just did there to blocked, I can see that where I am, no matter where I am in the world, in real time. So this would be true on the boards, this would be true in the backlogs, this would be true in any one of the collections.
I think it's worth pointing out here also that, these cards, the Favro cards, they're very rich, they replace things like, Google Docs, Word docs, Evernote, Notion, all these kind of things, and being super collaborative. And these boards, they're really replace many kind of tools for kind of the management of flow. So any kind of product management or workflow tools. And these Favro collections that Jon just mentioned, they're typically used for like three things. So the first thing is a collection represents a team. So a team, they will have their collection, and that's how they see what's going on. And you can have several boards in that collection, as you've been seeing. The second situation can be a situation, like a recurring meeting, or really think about it as a dashboard, where you see something that you want to have an overview of, or you want to give transparency to. And the third situation is really collaboration between teams. It could be within an organization, so it's a collaboration space between teams. But it can also be between organizations. We have many customers that are using Favro as the collaboration ground, so to say, between their various companies on something they're working together on, where the team working together on something is actually a combination of people from company A and company B. So these collections are very powerful.
Yep, and very true. And I have a great example of that cross-team collaboration right here. So say this enhanced performance is currently in progress, but the developer working on this realizes, hey, I need, I'm blocked. We don't have the latest version of Jenkins. I can't do my integration properly to maybe test this enhanced performance functionality. I'd move it to blocked. I could either link this card, because you can link any card to a Favro card, to another card, something like this, maybe upgrade Jenkins and an IT project. Or even better, again, since the cards can exist in multiple places and I can have that conversation on the card, I can say this is blocked, or just move it to a blocked column and it automatically turns the card red, automatically tags it as blocked. I can have that conversation on the card and say, hey, Jack in IT, I really need this Jenkins upgrade. I've already pre-filled in this kind of scenario. And I can take that blocked card and drag it and drop it into the urgent lane of this IT team's Kanban board. And Jack's going to see that. He's going to say something like, I'm on it. When's the expected ETA? And then, of course, I can say back up here on this product board, thanks a lot. It's great. And as this moves in progress, ready for review, eventually he does that Jenkins upgrade. If I turn on here, relations on the board, I'm going to be able to see that from an IT team's perspective, that Jenkins integration is done. He's done what he needed to do on this particular card, and now I can continue on with whatever it is I need to do. Okay, so now talking about other tools and maybe not having the need for as many tools, because Favro does end up replacing so many tools, as Patrick said. That being said, there also are many pre-built-in integrations within Favro. So if you need to integrate to Jira to maybe you want to maintain some Jira reporting, or you're maybe doing your development in Favro, but you're tracking your bugs still in Jira, there's a full-blown Jira integration. There's also an integration to G Suite, Google Calendar, Google Docs. There's an integration to GitHub, a full list of integrations for most of the business critical enterprise tools, including Slack. And I have a good example of the Slack integration here. On this particular team's release plan board, anytime I either add this icon up here integrates that there's a Slack integration, activated on this board because you activate many of the integrations, Jira integration, GitHub integration, Slack integration, board specific, and they're set up to be simple enough that the team members themselves can activate these integrations without having to talk to IT, without having to have somebody else set these up for them as you'd have in many other tools, Jira, for example. So here with this Jira integration, you can see that when a card moves or is added to a column on this particular release plan board, we're going to do two things. We're going to update, we're going to send a direct message to this person, Jon Leslie, and we're also going to update a general channel when all of these things happen. So you can have as many integrations, Slack integrations on the board as you choose. So if something moves from one release to the next, like this, maybe you could hear that little Slack ping, that just moved, that just updated a Slack channel and also sent a direct message to Jon Leslie saying that this particular moved from release 1 to release 2. Okay, speaking of releases, back here on this release plan board, the idea is that not only can you use these boards to do your release planning, but you can also do release forecasting. So I can see on this particular release burn down, for example, I have, if I switch this to a Kanban view, I have maybe all of the features, all of the user stories targeted towards a specific release. So one of the easiest ways to do release forecasting is to take a burn down perspective. If I switch to this release burn down, I can see for this particular project or this particular product, release 1, this is the current state. So we're currently here. It's giving us the velocity-based data line prediction as to are we going to hit our release date on time or not. This would be the same for epic forecasting. So say I have a particular epic here, 1 versus 1. This is an example, a game studio example. 1 versus 1 battle epic, which exists here in this game product backlog. So here's the theme, here's the epic broken down into its user stories. So all of those user stories that are targeted for that or a part of that epic breakdown also live on this board. So we can see in the Kanban view here the exact breakdown or progress of each one of these user stories that make up this epic. So if I'm the person responsible for this epic, I can quickly come in here and see, okay, this is playable, this is in progress, this is ready for review, and these are the ones that are ready for release, and maybe the ones that have already been released. I can quickly switch this to a forecast, either timeline, to see this from a date perspective, or I could also do an epic burn down, the same as you saw for the release burn down. Now we've taken a look at all of the critical capabilities for the most part. A couple more things I want to cover. Full-blown set of automations above and beyond the automations built into the boards, like the ability to auto tag, the ability to automatically assign and unassign, built directly into the board. Above and beyond that are a full set of automations we can see here. Here's an example setting up, for example, maybe recurring tasks. So we have our prioritized user stories here in this backlog, and then we have a list of recurring tasks. So these recurring tasks, these maybe have to happen weekly. Can all be configured so that they automatically set up a new instance of that task every week to make sure that you don't forget. So for example, weekly systems check. We can configure this for a specific day, week, month, at a specific time, using what are called card templates. It's important to point out that you've created templates in all levels of Favro, so card templates, board templates, backlog templates, collection templates, you name it. So this is an example where we're using that weekly systems check pre-existing task card template, and we're saying that every Monday at 9 a.m., we want to create this recurring task. And where do we want to put it? We want to put it on this board in the recurring task column, as you see here. We did the same thing for this daily integration task on a daily basis. There's also an example of every time within, say, every 5 days at this particular time, we want to create a notification saying, okay, maybe sending a status update on the status of everything that's been done. You can automatically send a notification message to very specific individuals, like so. So as you can see here, there's a full range of available automations. One last thing that I want to show you, built into Favro, various different ways to do time tracking. Also important for budgeting, especially if you're working with an externals. Here's a consulting agency example. So while there's time tracking, you can do full time tracking built into the cards. Another way to do it is to simply create some custom columns or custom fields like this. And then you can work out with, in this case, a particular client, or maybe you're working with an outsourcer, what that billable rate's going to be for each one of these projects and deliverables, and then figure out ahead of time the planned hours. And then either as a consulting agency, you're working on this particular client deliverables, or as an outsourcer, you're working on those deliverables in the same way. It would just be a function of entering in the new actual hours, maybe on a daily basis, directly on the cards themselves. And then that's all going to feed back, because again, the cards exist in multiple places at the same time, feed back into these backlogs where you can see everything in aggregate. Also, if you didn't want to do it with custom fields, as I said, there's full timesheet capability built into Favro. So directly on the cards, you can say, what activity am I working on? The category, billable, non-billable, something like this. The date I worked on it, the duration, and then add that to a timesheet. So, and then there's full timesheet reporting capability built into the tool here. Also, while I'm here, there's full reporting capability. With the ability to create reports aggregating across your collections, pulling from multiple tables, pulling from multiple backlogs, and then being able to, once you have that data, being able to visualize that data. As you can see here on this utilization report, I can slice and dice this in multiple ways. Maybe I want to see this by team member. Maybe I want to see it by board, by tag. And I can also look at it by any of these numeric measures, number of cards, estimation, however I want to slice and dice this data in either a pie chart or a bar chart like so. And from here, if you'd like more ability to slice and dice the data, as well as using the API, you can export to another tool to further break down this Favro data. Okay, so that wraps it up. That is Favro in a nutshell.
That's awesome, John. Just one final thing, a lot of the things that you have shown now, there's actually templates for, so maybe you can just create like a new collection to show the various templates that you can pick from there.
Sure. So when you go to create a new collection, you can either start from scratch, use one of these quick start templates like this, and then there's a full list of templates that are, as I said, you can create a template of any collection. You can use the templates that have been created and shared within your organization. But Favro also has some pre-built templates like these, so game development, marketing, Kanban, roadmap templates. There's also templates specific to Agile, to design.
Oh, go back to Agile a little bit there. There's many there we want to see. So, a lot of good stuff there.
Bug lists, road mapping, product backlog, release train, Spotify model. Lots of good places to start. Makes it much easier when you have things in context, obviously, to start using any app.
Awesome. So thanks, John. And just to give this some final thoughts. Hopefully what you saw now is how unique Favro is, and there's a reason it is unique. My fellow co-founders and I, we now have more than 15 years of Agile thought leadership and vision in the industry. And we really designed Favro for agility at true scale. But another thing that I think is quite important is that we're quite rich in game development background in our team, and this matters for the user experience, to make the tool feel more like playing a video game than using a boring enterprise tool from yesterday. And from a performance point of view, this matters, with our clients being typically distributed across the globe, and we see this going to be more important as people are working remote by default, moving forward. And finally, we are a Swedish company, and as much as we love the US and our American customers, which we have quite many, a lot of European companies are a bit concerned, taking recent developments with how GDPR works, etc., with American companies because of Cloud Act. So being a Swedish company gives us some advantages when it comes to the data governance part, not only for countries within the EU, but also other companies in countries outside of the US. And of course, US companies that maybe care less about this, but we're there for them too. So this is the a bit of the what makes Favro truly unique. And I would like to finish by just showing this picture. I took an old it's from I like going to masquerade parties, and this is one. And I think what's happening right now after COVID is that before using picking the most powerful tool, that was an opportunity to drive your organization to something better. But it has become more of a necessity now to really prioritize what kind of tools you're using. And I'm making this comparison here with with Federer, with Rafael Nadal, that if you would give him like a third best tennis racket, he wouldn't be happy. And I think really this is where our market is going now. So thank you so much for having looked through how Favro works with us. And I also hope you had a chance to check it out yourself.
Thank you.